Hello everyone, this is Grandmaster Damian Lemos here for iChess, and in this video we'll talk about the Spanish opening, also known as Ruy Lopez or Ruy Lopez, however you want to pronounce it. And this is probably the most famous, the most popular opening we have in chess, together with Sicilian. So let's see how we get the Ruy Lopez. White starts with e4, black plays e5. As white we play knight to f3, we develop a piece and we also attack the pawn on e5. Black plays knight to c6. He can also play knight f6, and this would be the Petrov or Russian defense. So knight c6, also developing a piece, protecting the pawn on e5. And here as white we play bishop to b5, and this is the Spanish, or as I was saying, Ruy Lopez. If we play as white bishop c4, this is the Italian game, also known as Hyoku piano, and another possible line for white apart from bishop c4 or bishop b5 is playing d4, and this would be the Scotch game. So we'll focus on bishop b5. This is by far the main move by white in this position. It's like 2 out of 3 you'll find bishop b5, and here black plays a6. This is the main line of the Spanish. He can also try knight to f6, and you probably heard about the Berlin Wall then. It is this knight f6, the Berlin variation. But okay, let's focus on the Spanish. a6, and white plays bishop a4. If we are looking for the advantage, it is wise to keep our bishop pair. We can also play bishop takes c6, this change variation, but here black, this is playable for both sides, but white, he loses the bishop pair, and the thing is, as white we are not winning a pawn. Knight takes e5, it looks like we win a pawn, but the truth is black plays queen d4, attacking the knight on e5 and also the pawn on e4. So we have to play something like knight f3, queen takes e4, now we have to play queen e2, otherwise we lose the right to castle. So queen e2, he can take, king takes, and okay, that position is more or less equal, but black has a plus because he's got the bishop pair and he can still castle. With the king on e2, we can no longer castle, and as I was saying, we don't have the bishop pair. That position is open, and the bishop pair is a good weapon to have. So, as I was saying, this variation for white is playable, but we don't have to play knight takes e5 here. So, after a6, the main move, what everybody plays, is bishop to a4. We keep the tension, we still have the chance of playing bishop takes c6 later, but for the time being, we keep our bishop pair. Here, black plays knight to f6, and as white, we have the e4 pawn under attack, so we can play the simple d3, or we can also castle. This is the main move, and here is where black has to decide what to play. He can play the open Spanish, that would be playing knight takes e4, and it makes sense, the name, the open Spanish, it makes a lot of sense because that position arising after knight takes e4 is quite open. As white we play rook e1, we can play this, we can take on e5 afterwards. There is another move which is d4, this is quite tricky. If this, we can play rook e1, and now black is facing some development issues. So after d4, the main line of the open Spanish goes b5, bishop here, and black, he's not interested in keeping his extra pawn. Instead, he plays d5, and once we take the pawn back, he can play a move like bishop e6. And this is the main position of the open Spanish. And, well, as white we have some advantages. We have an advanced pawn on e5. On the other hand, he's got the knight on e4, which might be annoying, but okay.
Buying individual chess courses to add to your collection can get expensive, and waiting for the course or video you're looking for to go on sale can take weeks or even months. So, what's a chess enthusiast to do? Introducing the iChess Club, an exclusive community of chess enthusiasts that enjoy a wild range of benefits, including a permanent 40% discount on virtually all chess courses on our shop. Yes, 40% on all items anytime. But wait, there's more. For those of you who like physical DVDs, we offer unlimited free shipping on all items, anywhere in the world, anytime. You'll also get access to the entire iChess.club library, where we post over a dozen exclusive new videos every month. Our lineup of presenters is of much higher quality than anything you can find on YouTube, with exclusive videos by Simon Williams, Damian Lemos, Valerie Lilov, Brian Smith, Eric Rosen you can't find anywhere else, and even private appearances by world's top grandmasters such as Anatoly Karpov, Judith Polgar, Susan Polgar, and more. There are dozens of other benefits as well, such as an additional 5% off all items already on sale, a free 30-minute preview of every single product in our shop, and the ability to purchase items at the sale price up to 30 days after the sale has ended. There are so many benefits we can't possibly list them all in this video. So, join the iChess Club community today and start saving. Joining is easy and you can cancel at any time. So, what are you waiting for? Sign up today.
This is one of the possibilities we have. After this move, after kingside castle, the open Spanish with knight takes e4. Another move is bishop e7, and this is the main move actually. Bishop e7, black keeps playing safe moves. He's preparing to castle kingside, and as white we play rook e1. So here we have to pay attention because after bishop e7 we can still consider taking on c6. It's like in this line both e4 and e5 are hanging, so we have to be aware of these possibilities. If we take on c6, he takes, and now after knight takes e5, well, he just takes on e4, and again, we are just trading pawns. And we are also losing our bishop pair. The moment we take on c6, we lose our bishop pair, and this is usually favoring black, because that position is open, and he's got bishops. So, we usually play this if we win the pawn on e5. If we are just trading pawns, then we are not taking on c6. That is like my personal rule for these positions. So, let's see the move order again. I know we have a lot of information so far. So bishop a4, knight f6, here we can play d3, or we can castle, bishop to e7, and here white plays rook to e1. And when we play rook e1, we are protecting the pawn on e4, and that means bishop takes c6, followed by knight takes e5 is a threat. Imagine he plays, well, imagine he castles, which is a reasonable move, then we can take on c6, and after pawn takes, we simply take on e5. Here we win. The pawn black gets nothing in return, and there's no knight takes e4 because the rook is protecting. So clean extra pawn for white. We also destroy his pawn structure on the queen side. So yeah, this is very good actually. Clear advantage for us. So after rook e1, before castling, before playing this move, black has to play b5. This in-between move is good because now we have to play bishop b3, we have no other choice, and then he can castle safely. The thing is, e5 is no longer under attack. There's no bishop takes c6. So here, yeah, both castle kingside and d6 are played a lot. We usually get transpositions as well. There's only one difference. If he castles, he can consider playing a quick d5 without wasting a tempi playing d6. And after c3, if for instance if we play c3, then black, he can play the Marshall Gambit with d5. You probably heard about this gambit, which is super aggressive for black. And yeah, the main line goes pawn takes, knight takes d5, and here as you can see, the e5 pawn is hanging, so knight takes e5. Rook takes, white is up a pawn, but on the other hand, black has a lot of counterplay. Our knight f3, which is supposed to be the kingside defender, is no longer there. And as I was saying, black has some serious attacking chances on the king side. I like playing these variations as black because you're down a pawn, but you have initiative, and that, in practice, that is what really matters. So, the Marshall, very interesting. Of course, in this position after bishop b3, c3 is not binding. c3 is actually allowing the Marshall with d5. We can also play moves like knight c3, a4. We have soft lines where d5 is not as powerful as c3, d5. So you always have alternatives as white as well. So that happens if black castles kingside, but a lot of players, they are happy playing d6 because now once he plays d6, the e5 pawn is well protected, and that means he can play something like knight a5. When he plays d6, knight a5 is a positional threat. Just to make things more simple, if he plays knight a5 here, trying to trap our bishop, then we take on e5, and we win a pawn. If he plays d6 first, and we play, suppose we play king h1, then he can play knight to a5, this pawn is protected, and he traps our bishop. If we lose the bishop pair, we know how bad this can be, because that position is potentially open. So, when he plays d3, as white, we have to more or less play c3, and this move, you'll see this move often because first we control the center, we prepare moves like d4, and most important, after c3, we have an escaping square for our bishop, so even if he plays knight a5, we have bishop c2, we don't have to worry about knight a5 anymore. So c3, this move is key. Here black castles, and then we play h3. If you look up this position on a database, you'll find millions of games. We have this position played by super grandmasters, former world champions, club players. You'll find this position everywhere. And h3, this move is key as well, because if we want to play something like d4, occupying the center, it is good to stop this pin, especially when you have d4 already. The pin is a bit annoying. It is fair to say this pin is annoying because we have some pressure on d4. Here, for instance, he's trying to take on f3, and if we play queen takes f3, then d4 is no longer protected, and if he takes on f3 and we take with the g-pawn, then our king side is a mess. So if we want to play d4, it is good to play h3 first, we stop the pin, and then we are ready to occupy the center by playing d4. So again, this is probably the main position of the Ruy Lopez or Spanish, and black has a lot of systems. Knight a5, bishop b7, there is a crazy looking move which is knight b8, the Breyer system, and this knight b8, it looks bad, but it is actually one of the best moves black has in this position, because the knight is much better on d7. Also, the c7 pawn can advance. Previously with the knight on c6, the pawn on c7 was, a bit passive. Now after knight b8, black, he can also try occupying the center with c5. So this knight b8, the Breyer system, I've played this myself as black with good results, but the very, very main move here is knight a5, because he wins a tempi, he's attacking our bishop on b3, and unless we want to lose the bishop pair, we have to play bishop c2. We have no other choice. And after bishop c2, black, who's won a tempi, it's his turn again, he can play c5. So in two moves, well, he moved the knight to the corner, that's not special, but he managed to play c5. And he more or less has some space in the center. So after c5, as white, we need to continue our development. And this is not theory, this is something you learn by playing the Spanish and by analyzing Spanish games. You can play d4, or you can simply play d3. This is not about the moves, it's about the plan. It's not about memorizing theory, it's about understanding how that position works. So, suppose you play d4, suppose you play d3. The thing is, we have to know the plan, and that's why I prefer d3, because we are not opening that position yet, we are not required to know tons of theory. After d3, all we need to do is know the plans. And the thing is, after d3, we can still play d4 in the future, but we are ready to get our pieces out. And in this line, white attacks on the king side. Once you know the plan, you'll realize why rook e1 was a good move, why c3 bishop c2 was a good maneuver. You'll see that everything works. And after d3, our plan is simple. We want to drive this knight to the king side. Knight bd2, knight f1, and then we can see maybe knight here, or maybe the knight goes to h2, but that is the main plan in this variation. We need the knight on the king side, because we want to attack there. That position looks closed, but at some point the bishop on c2 will be part of the attack. Imagine one day we play d4, then bishop c2 is going to be an attacker as well. I've seen other maneuvers, such as, imagine, I'll just play some moves as black, but before I do so, imagine we have knight d2, knight f1, knight g3, then once those moves are in, I can also play something like knight h2, and then I drive my queen to the king side, and the knight on h2 can go to g4. So let me just try playing that variation out. Knight f1, suppose he plays rook c8. Black, he's gonna try doing something in the meantime, he's not gonna play passive, but I'm just playing random moves. We can try something like this, and then we have some serious attack on the king side. Not to mention, in this position, I forgot about knight f5. The knight there looks very aggressive, and if black decides to play something like this, which is okay, I mean he's stopping knight f5, then he's creating a lot of weaknesses on the king side. And we can try exploiting those by playing bishop h6, maybe we can try h4, h5. It all depends on that position, but it is good to know the plans. So I think when we play the Spanish, if you know this plan, you'll have a good middle game already. Even in this position after bishop e7, I set rook e1, which is by far the main move. Imagine as white, you don't want to allow the open Spanish with knight takes e4, well, then instead of castling kingside, you can just play d3. You castle later, you castle afterwards. Black, well, once we play d3, by the way, we have the idea of taking plus knight takes e5. So suppose he plays d6, now we can castle. At the end of the day, we'll have a similar position. We play c3 to make sure our bishop has an escaping square. We don't want our bishop to be trapped with b5 and knight a5. So we play the setup we already know. We play with h3. We can even get a similar position. Suppose we play bishop here, knight a5, bishop here, c5. It is actually the same position and we used another move order. But the plan remains the same. And that is the chess I'm looking for. Relying on ideas and not on memorizing endless variations. If you understand what's going on, it's much easier to play. So coming back to the main line of the Spanish, castle, bishop e7, rook e1, b5, bishop b3, d6, c3. Remember h3 because we want to stop this spin. So knight a5, bishop c2, c5, d3. Again, we want to drive our knight to the king side and then we'll have a good attack there. In the meantime, black is gonna try doing something, especially on the queen side, because he's got some space advantage there. So queen c7 looks like a reasonable move. And then as white, we simply follow the plan, knight to d2. In the game we're following, black played knight c6. He can try other moves, but imagine he plays b4. Well, this is... this move doesn't concern me at all, because first, I could consider closing that position on the queen side, but I can also play something like pawn takes, and eventually I can play knight f1, I can move my bishop, I can play rook c1, and suddenly black is having some issues on the queen side, because the queen on c7 is not well placed. We also have to remember that we can consider opening that position with d4, but this move, I don't feel black has a good development to play a move like this. If he plays c4, I think this is even worse, because now we can play d4. One day we can try opening this diagonal, but look at this knight. The knight is completely out of the game. When he plays c4, he's killing a potential square for his knight. So basically he cannot open the queen side yet, and that is one of the main reasons why he plays knight c6, because the knight, he knows the knight is not doing much on the corner, and well, he's trying to improve this knight. He can try doing this, maybe knight b8, knight d7 as we saw before, or he can just leave the knight on c6. So knight f1, again, the plan as white is pretty straightforward. Black played rook to e8, and this move, when you first look at this move, you probably think it's an useless move, but if we think deeply about it, we understand black has an idea. Rook e8 is actually playing against our plan. Our plan is white, suppose he plays something else. We know it's playing knight here, possibly knight h4 and knight f5. We want to get as many pieces as possible on the f5 square, queen f3, and then our attack is quite strong. So when he plays rook e8, he's taking some prophylaxis before we execute our plan. Here we can still play knight g3, I mean that move is awesome, we have to play it, but he can consider moves like this, he can try doing g6, and then he has bishop g7, but all these moves are possible because he played rook e8, otherwise this plan wouldn't be possible for black. So rook e8, mysterious move, but he's preparing this, this and this. He's gonna weaken his king side because he has to stop knight f5, but at least he has bishop f8 and bishop g7. That is good for black. I mean, weakening the king side, but at the same time he's driving some pieces there. So he plays rook e8, white decides to play this move, and in this game black decides to play d5. And I think this move, I mean the move is not losing, but he's opening that position too much and he doesn't have a great development. So I mean, if he had more pieces in, and it is tough to say a move for black, because if he plays this move then the bishop is no longer guarding f5, I can simply play this. If he plays bishop e6, well, he has to deal with moves like knight g5, and black, trust me, he doesn't want to lose the bishop pair either. So maybe bishop d7. This move is still guarding f5. Now knight g5 is not doing much because the bishop is not on e6. So maybe bishop d7, rook d8, bring some more pieces into the game, and then he can play d5. But in order to play d5, I think black needs a much better development. Here, I mean, it's okay, but I feel what white played was good. He played d4, and what happens here, that position is super complicated. So you can see we have a lot of possible takes, retakes. We have some tactics going on. In this position, white has the better development, and suddenly bishop c2, which was passive, now this bishop is playing, and that is something that happens a lot in the Spanish. Bishop c2 is sleeping, but suddenly the bishop comes into play. So after d5, white played d4. Here we have a lot of possibilities. Let's see what happened in this game. Black decided to play e takes d4, and here white takes on d5. Here we understand why black's d5 was dubious. That position opens, and his rook on e8 is a bit weak. It is actually unprotected. If knight f6 leaves the f6 square, then rook e8 is no longer protected. This diagonal looks very good for us, and in a flash white got a decisive attack. This move, I like it. Hitting f7, hitting h7. We are basically all in on the king side, and his rook is unprotected. In this position he would love playing a move like bishop takes knight, but then we take on e8. So he plays knight to f6, bringing the knight back to defense, and then the simple knight to h5. What a crushing attack by white, removing the only defender, the only kingside defender, and in the meantime we have h7 as a target. If knight f6 leaves that square, we simply take on h7, and believe it or not, black is defenseless in this position. If he plays g6, we just win a piece. Remember, rook e8 was hanging. If he plays h6, we can still take, and bishop takes is not possible because the rook is hanging, so he has to play this, which is awful. Even if we move the knight back to f3 or e4, his king is unprotected. and even a move like this is likely to be working. Look at our bishops. Look at queen h5 check. This is what can happen in the Spanish when black plays it wrong. Kingside defendless, our bishops are coming, and yeah, that is, as I was saying, what happens when you play a quick d5 with no development. So yeah, let's see again. This takes, e takes d5, knight takes, knight here, knight f6. All of white pieces attacking with knight h5. Black decided to play bishop b7, and white keeps on bringing pieces into the game. What a nightmare this position is for black. Bishop f4. Now black plays queen d7. If he plays bishop d6, then we take on f6, and again we destroy his kingside. Not to mention h7 is hanging as well. So he plays queen d7. Knight takes f6 check. Bishop takes. Now we get the pawn back, and we also destroy his kingside, so king f8, queen h5, and in this position black resigned. Maybe it's a bit too soon to resign, but after queen h5 we have some threats. The first one is like moving our bishop, and then we have queen h8, that is checkmate. Another threat we have is deviating the queen. The queen is the only one protecting f7, so a move like bishop d6 would be crushing too, because if he takes, then we play queen takes f7. So for instance, if rook takes, now we are cutting the king, so he has to play rook e8, and now we have the simple bishop d6. This is a check, so if he takes, we mate him, queen takes f7. And if he plays anything else, no matter how he covers the check, we also play queen takes f7 mate. So, I mean, of course this is game over. Even after queen e7, here we can win the queen, but it is much easier to play this. And yeah, black has no possibilities after bishop d6, so he probably saw this variation and that's why he resigned. I think this is a good example. If you look on the database, you'll find endless games like this. Of course, black, he can do better, as we saw rook e8. Without d5, he can try bishop f8, g6 and bishop g7. These games are quite slow. We have every single piece on board, so a game full of maneuvers is expected. So that's all for this opening, for this video. You have a link below the video, an article about the Spanish. So I hope you found this useful. I hope you could learn something. And of course, I want to see you guys in my next videos. Thank you.